On June 11th, 2026, something happened that had never happened before in history. One company raised 75 billion in a single day. Not over a year, not over a decade, one day. People lost their minds. The news went crazy. Elon Musk became the world's first trillionaire before the stock market even closed. The stock jumped 67% in 3 days. People who had been waiting years to get in finally had their shot. And somewhere in a boardroom, the insiders were already figuring out how to cash out. Because here is what the headlines did not tell you. Less than 2 weeks after the biggest stock market debut in human history, the stock had already dropped more than 20% from its highest point. 20% gone in 12 days. And the people who lost that money were not big Wall Street firms and teams of analysts. They were regular people, people who believed the story. And the story, when you take away the rockets and the Mars dreams and everything Elon, it's one of the boldest money grabs ever put in front of the public. Today we are going to read the fine print they did not want you to see. Let's start with the number that should have made everyone stop. 107 times sales. That is the price investors were asked to pay when SpaceX went public. Not 107 times profit, not 107 times earnings, 107 times how much money the company brings in. A well-known financial analyst read the IPO documents and called them, and these are his exact words, unserious, empty, and borderline dishonest. That is not someone on the internet. That is a credentialed professional who read the actual filing. He put it in a way anyone can understand, and at that price, SpaceX would be worth twice as much as Walmart, while making less money than Macy's, the department store, the one with the Thanksgiving Day parade. And yet people sent in money from their savings account, their retirement funds, money they spent years building because the story was just that good. It's always about the story. Here is what SpaceX actually is when you put the hype to the side. It is a defense company that runs mostly on government money. About $10 to $12 billion of what SpaceX expects to make in 2026 comes from NASA, the Pentagon, the Space Force, and other government agencies. The US government is their biggest customer. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. While Elon Musk was running Doge, the government department that decided which companies got money and which ones got cut, his own company was collecting billions in government contracts. Congressional investigations have already started. Think about what that means for the business. If a future government decides to look at those contracts and ask hard questions, $10 to $12 billion a year is at risk. That is not a technology advantage, that is a political relationship. And political relationships change every 4 years. But the government contract problem is not even the most alarming part. In February 2026, just months before going public, Elon Musk did something that made experienced investors do a double take. He sold his own AI company into SpaceX. He sold his company to his other company, both of which he controls. Financial experts have a term for this, a related party transaction. In plain language, it means one person sat on both sides of the deal and decided the price for himself. The AI unit he merged into SpaceX lost $2.5 billion in a single quarter, in 3 months, losing $2.5 billion. And in the first 3 months of 2026, SpaceX spent over $10 billion more than double what it spent the year before. Most of that was on the AI side. The company made $18 billion in all of 2025. It spent $10 billion in just the first 3 months of 2026. That is not a business growing into its future. That is a company burning through cash at a speed that should make any investor nervous. And the people who just bought shares at IPO are now the ones sitting with that risk. Now let's talk about the deal itself, because the structure of this IPO is unlike almost anything that has come before it. When you buy stock in a normal public company, you own a piece. Your vote counts. If the people running the company do something that hurts you, there are things you can do about it. SpaceX took each one of those protections and quietly removed them. Elon Musk kept 85% of all the votes with no end date, no reduction over time, no point in the future where regular shareholders get more say. You buy a share, you have almost no voice. Not today, not in 10 years, never. But it goes further than that. If SpaceX does something that costs you money, something that in any normal company you could take to court, you cannot sue them. The rules say in any dispute goes to private arbitration. You go alone against one of the most powerful legal teams money can buy. No class action, no federal court, no joining with thousands of other shareholders who got hurt the same way you did. SpaceX is the first major company to actually use this rule. Not just write it down as an option, actually use it. They looked at every protection that exists for regular investors, and they chose the structure that gives you the least amount of any of them. Then they asked you to trust them with your money? The company's own filing says it has a history of losses and may never become profitable. Those words are in the document they submitted to regulators. The filing had 38 pages of risk warnings. The people who actually read those pages, professional analysts at a major firms, came out and said things like train wreck and borderline dishonest. One major ratings firm gave SpaceX the lowest possible score for how it is run, 1 out of 10 on how it handles problems and concerns. 1 out of 10. Now here is the part that should really get your attention. While regular people are lining up to buy shares at the IPO price, the insiders were already allowed to sell. Normally, there is a rule. Company insiders must hold their shares for 180 days after a company goes public. The whole point of this rule is to stop the people who built the company from dumping their shares onto excited buyers and walking away before reality hits. SpaceX got around this. Insiders at SpaceX can sell their shares before that window is up. The people who know exactly what is in those 38 pages of risk warnings, who know every number, every deal, every problem, they can sell to you before they have to hold. Stop and think about it. Who is on the other side of that trade? And then there is a deal with Anthropic that made Wall Street genuinely confused. SpaceX announced that Anthropic, a major AI company, would pay them $1.25 billion a month for use of their data center. That would be nearly $15 billion a year in a company that made $18.7 billion in all of last year. This deal would change everything about how SpaceX looks financially. Then Musk went on X and said the deal might not last as long as the filing suggested, that SpaceX might need the computing power back, that there would be a way out. A professor at Columbia Law School said it simply: either Musk is right and the filing is misleading, or the filing is right and Musk is not telling the truth. One of them is wrong, and the people deciding whether to put their life savings into this company were trying to figure out which version was real. Here is the one last thing to understand about how this valuation was built. Every price that SpaceX used as a reference point before the IPO, every number that showed up in articles about how much the company was worth, came from deals the insiders did with each other, not from outside investors setting a price, the company itself deciding what it was worth. The valuation doubled in 1 year. While the actual business grew about 20%, the price went up, the company barely moved, and one serious analysis concluded that if the stock market ever decides to price SpaceX based only on what it can actually prove today, the drop could reach 85 to 90%. That is not a prediction. That is a scenario backed by what happened to other hyped companies that could not match their promises. I'm not telling you SpaceX is going to fail. The rockets work. Starlink works. The engineering is genuinely impressive. Some people who understand this space believe in it deeply. What I am telling you is this: this offering was put together carefully, legally, on purpose to protect one person above everyone else. It was built so he keeps all the control no matter what happens. So he can make deals with his own companies without shareholders being able to stop him. So he can sell early while you are still locked in. So if you lose money, you cannot go to court. So a valuation built on government contracts that could disappear, an AI division losing billions, and a price that experienced analysts call hallucinatory becomes your problem the moment you buy in. This was never really about going to Mars. It was about who gets rich on the way there and who gets left with the bill when the numbers finally have to tell the truth. The rocket looks incredible going up. Just make sure you know who bought the ticket and who is already on the way back down.